Buckingham Palace has rarely sounded this severe. At precisely 7:04 a.m. London time, the Royal Communications Office released a 17-word statement that reverberated through every newsroom in Europe. Lady Camilla will no longer be serving in any public or ceremonial royal capacity, by order of His Majesty. New embellishment, new royal flourish, just finality. Within minutes, television anchors broke into their morning broadcasts, commentators gasped on live radio, and the gates of Clarence House filled with photographers. What appeared at first to be another rumor of royal restructuring was in fact a constitutional earthquake. According to multiple senior palace aides, the crisis erupted 10 days earlier, when a routine security inspection of Realness House, the Duchess's private estate in Wiltshire, uncovered two highly sensitive items: a confidential draft of Queen Elizabeth II's final will, printed on government-decoded parchment, a Swiss auction contract authorizing the sale of a royal artifact, so historically symbolic it had been under restricted preservation since 1953, a mother-of-pearl and jade ceremonial fan used by Her late Majesty at her coronation. The contract, drawn up by the Geneva-based firm Maison Vaudry & C.A., listed CR as the final signatory. Corporate filings traced the paperwork through 3 shell companies in Monaco, one of which was linked financially to Tom Parker Bowles, the Queen Consort's son. When auditors matched the auction item's description against the Royal Archive inventory, they realized the object carried a red-coded notation, "Nano-transferable, excluded from commerce, symbolic property of the sovereign crown." That single phrase meant the artifact could never leave royal custody. To attempt its sale was not just improper, it was a breach of sovereign trust, punishable under the Crown Heritage Protection Act of 1959. Insiders recount that King Charles learned of the findings while reviewing estate documents at Balmoral Castle. A senior advisor present described his reaction as quiet devastation, followed by unrestrained fury. The king ordered an emergency convocation of his inner council, the Prince of Wales, Princess Anne, and the Duke of Edinburgh. For 2 hours behind the sealed oak doors of the Green Drawing Room, the monarch demanded explanations. The evidence, he was told, was unequivocal. The fan's removal request had been logged under Camilla's personal clearance code, and a forged amendment to the late Queen's will written in blue fountain-up ink, matching Camilla's handwriting, 92%, had been stored alongside it. The forged line was chillingly specific. "Certain ceremonial heirlooms upon my departure may be bestowed under discretion of the Queen Consort." No such clause existed in the original document archived at the Royal Trust Vaults. To the king and his children, it looked like an attempt to grant Camilla unilateral control over the symbolic regalia of the monarchy, a constitutional trespass masked as sentiment. The financial audit revealed wire transfers totaling £2.4 million between the Monaco Holding Company and a London legal consultancy that had previously represented Tom Parker Bowles' publishing ventures. Although the funds were labeled as consulting fees, investigators could not identify any services rendered. A confidential memorandum circulated within the Palace Accounts Office described the pattern as consistent with layered concealment. When confronted, Camilla reportedly denied wrongdoing, insisting the fan had been intended for temporary exhibition abroad to raise charity funds. But the inclusion of a sales clause in the Geneva contract rendered that defense implausible. A senior curator from the Royal Collection Trust summarized the gravity succinctly. To remove that fan from Windsor's vault is equivalent to removing the scepter from the coronation altar. Witnesses say Charles paced the long gallery of Balmoral in visible anguish before erupting, "She has traded our mother's memory for silver." The outburst, later confirmed by 2 aides, was the first direct rebuke of Camilla ever recorded within palace minutes. By evening, the king drafted an order invoking Section 3 of the Royal Household Governance Act, allowing the sovereign to suspend any member's ceremonial duties pending investigation. The directive, signed CR3 and sealed with crimson wax, was dispatched to Clarence House before midnight. Its consequence was immediate. Camilla's name was withdrawn from all forthcoming state programs, including the Commonwealth Remembrance Banquet and the Windsor Charity Gala, scheduled for November 20. Downing Street issued no comment, but several MPs privately described the scandal as the gravest institutional breach since the abdication of 1936. Markets reacted within hours. Shares in British Heritage Holdings, which manages royal exhibition licensing, fell 6.2% in morning trading. Royal watchers noted that Prince William's motorcade arrived at Kensington Palace before dawn the next day, followed soon after by Prince Edward, an unmistakable sign that the younger generation had united behind the king. As one senior courtier confided to The Times, "This isn't merely a family crisis. It's a line in the sand between legacy and liability. The palace's silence, since that announcement, speaks louder than any proclamation. But one truth now dominates every headline in Britain. Queen Camilla's era has ended not by abdication, but by exposure. While the monarchy reeled from the shock of the king's emergency directive, the epicenter of the investigation shifted quietly, yet firmly, to Realness House, Camilla's secluded private residence in Wiltshire. Purchased in 1996 after her divorce from Andrew Parker Bowles, the property had long been regarded as her personal sanctuary, far removed from the ceremonial trappings of royal life. But following the revelations surrounding the illicit contract tied to the 1953 coronation fan, Realness was no longer viewed as a retreat. It became the subject of a full-blown royal inquiry, led by the Palace Security Division, under authorization from the King's Privy Council. The initial inspection was routine, a biannual audit of encrypted safes and secure storage as required under the Royal Protocol for Private Estates. But what began as standard procedure became a turning point when, in one of Camilla's lesser-used guest suites, a discreetly embedded floor safe failed to respond to biometric clearance. Technicians had to override the lock. Inside were 3 objects: a folder marked E2 Private Correspondence, not for general review. A Cartier box containing a jade and mother-of-pearl fan, wrapped in blue silk. A printed document stamped with the letterhead of the Royal Council Office, with visible ink annotations in blue fountain pen. The document, upon analysis, turned out to be a previously unknown draft of Queen Elizabeth II's will. Unlike all authenticated versions, this one contained a handwritten amendment inserted into a paragraph on ceremonial property. This line stood out: "Certain ceremonial heirlooms, upon my departure, may be bestowed under discretion of the Queen Consort." The ink was subjected to forensic ink dating. While the paper matched official stock from the Royal Legal Division, the ink was less than 2 years old, dating it post-Elizabeth's passing. Handwriting analysts from Cranfield Institute of Graphology, contracted quietly by palace aides, confirmed a 92% match with Camilla's handwriting, particularly her signature loop strokes and pressure point curves. This amendment, if believed to be authentic, would have granted Camilla unprecedented access to the redistribution of royal heirlooms. But in reality, it was never signed by the Queen. That fact alone, unauthorized modification of a royal testament, escalated the affair from scandal to potential constitutional fraud. Simultaneously, palace auditors traced the corporate pathway of the fan's proposed auction. The Swiss firm Maison Vaudry & Ca. was initially approached via a holding company named Velmont Heritage SA, registered in Monaco. Further digging revealed that one of the directors of Velmont was also on the board of a gourmet publishing venture linked to Tom Parker Bowles. Tom, a food writer by trade, and long known to avoid palace politics, now found himself ensnared in what the media dubbed the Heritage Shell scheme. Though no direct statement has been made by Tom, insiders say he was visibly shaken when confronted by palace legal counsel. While his role remains unclear, the coincidence of shared financial directors painted a troubling picture of possible nepotistic channeling of royal assets. In the vacuum of Camilla's disappearance from public duty, it was Princess Catherine who first stepped into the ceremonial void. On the morning following the revelation, she was photographed leaving Windsor Chapel with Lady Louise Windsor, symbolizing a generational shift in guidance and stewardship. At the same time, Prince William summoned the Royal Historical Trust to review all heirloom transfers from the last 2 years. Sources close to the trust indicate that at least 7 items, including a pair of pearl drop earrings once worn by Queen Victoria, are currently unaccounted for in the official palace registry. This triggered what one aide referred to as the restoration audit, a meticulous tracing of any object classified as non-commercial ceremonial heritage that may have left official custody without sovereign consent. Legally, the royal family is considered above prosecution under British constitutional custom, but palace sources confirmed that the Attorney General was consulted about whether Camilla's alleged forgery and illicit contracting, while not criminal in the public sense, constituted violations of royal oath and constitutional guardianship. One royal legal scholar commented, "This isn't about jail, it's about guardianship of the crown. To tamper with a sovereign will is akin to rewriting history." No charges would be filed, but the palace made its position clear. Camilla had abused her station to manipulate the sacred boundaries of heritage, succession, and honor. The king was described as broken but resolved. In the days following the discovery, he was seen meeting privately with Princess Anne, who reportedly told him, "You can forgive her in private, but you must correct her in public." Prince Edward, typically silent in matters of palace intrigue, took a surprisingly firm stance. calling the act a betrayal of mother's values. His wife Sophie, reportedly in tears, was seen comforting Lady Louise, who had previously looked up to Camilla as a senior female figure in the family. For Prince William, the incident served as final proof of the need to modernize inheritance protections and the future Queen Catherine's symbolic elevation as the ethical steward of the monarchy. This was never about an object, one insider said. It's about what kind of institution we want to leave our children. To the average observer, a fan may seem like an ornamental relic, delicate and historic perhaps, but hardly powerful. But within the context of the British monarchy, the 1953 coronation fan of Queen Elizabeth II was far more than an accessory. It was a sacred artifact of continuity, a living emblem of the crown's silent rituals. And now, in the wake of Camilla's attempted auction of this national heirloom, its symbolism had turned into a lightning rod of fury, grief, and reckoning. Crafted by hand in 1952 by Maison de Villeroy, the famed Parisian fan maker, the object was a gift from the House of Commons to the young queen upon her accession. It featured white silk taffeta embroidered with the House of Windsor crest, and its sticks were made of mother-of-pearl, inlaid with Burmese rubies and polished jade, forming an intricate mosaic of British and Commonwealth iconography. But what made this fan historically untouchable was not merely its materials, it was its function. Used only once in public on the 2nd of June 1953, during a private moment inside Westminster Abbey, after the coronation crown had been placed upon Elizabeth's head, the fan was considered by palace historians as one of the quiet regalia, ceremonial tools never flaunted but preserved in reverence. According to Her Majesty's will, declassified in limited form after her passing, this fan was to remain in protective custodianship, neither transferred, nor appraised, nor displayed beyond the royal vaults as a sacred token of service and silent power. The Queen's private secretary at the time of her death, Sir Geoffrey Haddon, was said to have insisted the fan never be photographed up close, as it was intended for the divine eye, not the public lens. That such an object found itself entangled in commercial dealings, worse still, linked to Camilla's signature, represented more than an overreach. To traditionalists and loyalists, it was nothing short of desecration. The Swiss auction house Maison Vaudry & Cie had begun issuing private previews to elite collectors under the codename Lot 2157, Elizabeth's Whisper. Though it was disguised as an estate piece of uncertain provenance, insiders confirmed that VIP clients were told off-record that it was a monarchical relic with unmatched pedigree. One of those clients, a former U.S. ambassador with close ties to the Royal Collection Trust, grew suspicious and alerted British consular staff in Geneva. Within 48 hours, legal action halted the listing. It was this act of anonymous intervention that triggered the emergency audit and ultimately led to King Charles's fury, which insiders claim boiled over in a closed-door meeting at Clarence House when he saw Camilla's signed authorization form. "You do not sell legacy," he is reported to have shouted. "You guard it. You hand it down. You don't put it behind glass in Zurich." The rare outburst was heard by multiple aides and even reportedly caused Camilla to leave the room visibly shaken. In her private correspondence, later leaked to the Times, Camilla attempted to justify her actions. The item was never in ceremonial use post-1953. Its historical value seemed appropriate for curated display in a European institution. This statement did little to calm the storm. In fact, it backfired. Curated display was interpreted as a euphemism for luxury auction, while European institution was easily connected to Vaudry, a commercial auctioneer, not a museum. Behind the scenes, some members of Camilla's inner circle claimed she had been advised poorly and genuinely believed she had discretionary authority. But documents from the Royal Council showed no clause or amendment granting such authority to any queen consort, past or present. The nail in the coffin came with the handwriting analysis on the forged draft of the Queen's will. As news broke of the fan's near sale, social media exploded. The hashtags #FanOfBetrayal and #Elizabeth's Whisper trended for 3 days, alongside renewed calls for increased transparency in how royal relics are managed. Royal biographer Cecilia Langford wrote in The Guardian, "The monarchy does not endure because it holds diamonds. It endures because it holds memory. And this fan, soft, light, sacred, was memory made manifest." And the broader public, many of whom had never even heard of the fan before, now latched onto it as a symbol of everything that must be protected from commercialism, ego, and internal decay. Young Britons in particular, usually apathetic toward royal affairs, took to TikTok to decry what they called boomer betrayal of legacy. While Camilla remained absent from public life, it was Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales, who performed a subtle yet unmistakable act of contrast. At a remembrance service in Windsor the following week, Catherine wore a brooch designed in tribute to Queen Elizabeth's 1953 coronation fan, made not of silk or rubies, but white enamel and a single freshwater pearl. "It was gifted," she said quietly to a guest, "to honor something that should never have left our hands." She then donated £25,000 to the Royal Trust Restoration Fund, ensuring the safe preservation of minor regalia and ceremonial tools not covered under the National Archives. A palace staffer told The Telegraph, "She said nothing against Camilla, but everyone in the room heard what she stood for." Beyond public image, the damage was logistical as well. Trust in the royal custodial protocol, the detailed matrix by which heirlooms are tracked, had eroded. Private donors threatened to withdraw contributions unless new safeguards were implemented. The Royal Collection Trust saw a 19% dip in planned estate loans from private families. Worst of all, questions emerged in Parliament about the opaque nature of royal inheritance and object protection. Though unlikely to lead to direct legislation, it stirred unease within the Crown estate. "It is rare for an object so delicate to do so much damage," said one MP. But then again, so was the Queen. In the solemn stillness of Windsor's private gallery, two heirs to the House of Windsor stood before the imperial state diadem, a crown that had graced the heads of queens for generations. But in that moment, for Prince William and Prince Edward, it wasn't a symbol of majesty, it was a mirror of crisis. The scandal surrounding Queen Camilla's covert dealings, the near auction of Queen Elizabeth II's sacred coronation fan, and the forged clause in a hidden will draft, had shaken the monarchy's very foundation. But it was not only the crown that suffered, it was the trust between generations. On the second Sunday of November, with the monarchy's public calendar paused for remembrance services, Prince William quietly invited Prince Edward to a closed meeting at Sandringham House. Only 4 aides were present. According to a leaked diplomatic cable later confirmed by the Sunday Times, the topic was titled bluntly, "Institutional Integrity, Contingency and Containment." This was not just about punishing Camilla, it was about securing the institution itself and ensuring that ceremonial and spiritual authority would no longer be subject to personal ambition or financial manipulation. Edward, known for his discretion and deep respect for his late mother's ceremonial codes, brought with him a folder labeled Custodianship Protocols 1950-2022, detailing every item considered non-transferable by Queen Elizabeth II. "We have to set a precedent now," Edward reportedly told William, "before trust becomes another item on the auction block." How? What triggered this decisive moment was not just the near sale of the coronation fan, but an internal audit William ordered, using MI5 secured forensic accounting teams that uncovered 3 additional objects listed under suspicious handling. A diamond-set reliquary cross, worn by Elizabeth II during the Maundy Thursday service in 1981, moved to Raymil House in 2023. An embroidered altar cloth, believed to have been used in the 1977 Silver Jubilee, stored without clearance in a Parisian archival vault. A handwritten note from Winston Churchill to Queen Elizabeth, missing from the Royal Archives since 2022. None of these objects had clearance to be removed from the royal vault, and all, according to asset trail documents, shared indirect pathways through a Luxembourg-registered trust, a trust linked to a holding company owned by Tom Parker Bowles's business associate, François Delacroix. This damning pattern confirmed what many feared. The integrity of the royal collection had been compromised at its most symbolic level. And worse, the person orchestrating the movement of these objects wasn't a rogue staffer, it was the Queen Consort herself. As internal discussions grew increasingly urgent, the palace was forced to maintain public appearances. But behind every carefully worded press statement, tension grew. William, according to senior aides, refused to attend any event involving Camilla. At the Festival of Remembrance, held at the Royal Albert Hall, William stood 3 rows away from Camilla, offering only a nod, no handshake, no words. Catherine, standing beside him, wore a brooch modeled after the coronation fan, as a subtle yet unmistakable statement of solidarity with the Queen's legacy. Meanwhile, Edward's wife Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, made a rare public speech at the British Archives Society, emphasizing the non-negotiable importance of archival trust and royal custodianship. It was the first time in decades a royal had made such an explicit statement on internal safeguarding. 2 weeks after the initial confrontation, King Charles called a meeting at Balmoral, the late Queen's favorite sanctuary, and the symbolic heart of her personal monarchy. All senior working royals were present: William and Catherine, Edward and Sophie, Princess Anne, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, Camilla, The meeting, according to insiders, lasted 6 hours. At one point, the room was cleared to allow only the king and his 2 sons. It was then that Charles made the pivotal decision. According to a transcript leak obtained by the Daily Mirror, "This cannot follow us into the new reign. We must leave no room for doubt in the public mind or in our own conscience. Camilla will no longer represent this house in any public or ceremonial capacity." Sources close to Camilla say she broke into tears when informed she was being stripped of her queen consort status. She pleaded that she had acted with the crown's dignity in mind, and that the confusion over the queen's will was an honest misjudgment. But no one, not Anne, not Edward, and certainly not William, spoke in her defense. She was told she would retain residency at Mill House but would no longer carry titles, perform engagements, or represent the crown abroad or domestically. The following morning, Clarence House released the now infamous 17-word statement. Lady Camilla will no longer be serving in any public or ceremonial royal capacity by order of His Majesty. The public reaction was swift and, surprisingly, largely supportive. Polls conducted by YouGov 2 days after the announcement showed 71% of Britons approved of the decision to demote Camilla. 83% supported increased transparency for royal heirloom protection. 63% believed Camilla's actions had caused serious harm to the monarchy's image. Young voters on social platforms celebrated William and Edward's resolve, using hashtags like #CrownCleanse and #ProtectTheLegacy. Memes emerged of Catherine as the guardian of the fan, and even the BBC ran a special titled, "When Royals Go Rogue, the Camilla Files." But for those within the monarchy, the celebration was muted. One senior aide described the mood best. It was not a victory. It was a necessary incision to keep the patient alive. In the weeks following Camilla's dramatic fall from royal grace, the burden of symbolic restoration fell on a figure long admired for her discretion, elegance, and moral clarity, Catherine, Princess of Wales. Though not in line for the throne herself, Catherine had, over the years, built a unique form of public legitimacy as a spiritual heir to Queen Elizabeth II's values, as well as a stabilizing force in the future monarchy. Now, in the shadow of scandal, that reputation became essential not only for healing public perception, but for rebuilding internal trust within the royal household and the nation alike. Within days of Camilla's demotion, Prince William quietly appointed Catherine to lead a newly formed internal oversight group, the Royal Collection Review Committee. The group's mission was clear: audit, trace, and reaffirm the custody of all ceremonial objects, archives, and heirlooms connected to the sovereign legacy. Catherine's appointment sent a message that could not be ignored. Her presence brought gravitas. She wasn't just auditing a vault, she was safeguarding the crown's soul. Accompanied by experts from the Royal Archives, legal advisors from the Crown Office, and representatives from the House of Lords Heritage Subcommittee, Catherine personally reviewed over 170 classified ceremonial items held at Windsor, Sandringham, and Balmoral. According to a palace insider, it wasn't about inventory, it was about accountability. She insisted on hand-verifying every item linked to Elizabeth II's coronation. The House of Commons took notice. In a rare moment of bipartisan unity, Parliament introduced the Sovereign Legacy Protection Act, a bill designed to criminalize unauthorized removal or sale of royal ceremonial assets, classify forged royal documents as acts of constitutional fraud, mandate digital tracking and vault integration for royal heirlooms. The bill, informally dubbed the Catherine Clause by MPs, passed its second reading with 92% support. On a rain-slicked morning outside Buckingham Palace, Catherine made a quiet, powerful gesture. Attending a children's charity event, she wore Queen Elizabeth's gray-blue sapphire brooch, a piece unseen since the late Queen's final Christmas message. Observers noted, it was not worn in celebration, it was worn in stewardship. The message was unmistakable. The monarchy would rise not by silence, but by principle. When the palace released its terse 17-word statement, Lady Camilla will no longer be serving in any public or ceremonial royal capacity by order of His Majesty, it was more than just a formal rebuke. It was a seismic reset, the kind not seen since the abdication crisis of 1936. For Camilla, once a central figure of modern monarchy reinvention, it was the ultimate erasure, quiet, clinical, and irreversible. Within 24 hours of the announcement, Camilla was relocated to Mill House, her private residence in Wiltshire, where she was instructed to cease all engagements under the sovereign banner. Her official portraits were removed from the Royal Collection website. Invitations bearing her crest were revoked. Clarence House staff operating under her authority were either reassigned or let go. Though she retains the title, Lady Camilla, Insiders confirm it holds no ceremonial weight, no precedence, no budget. "She's not in exile by geography," said one former courtier. "She's in exile by silence. That's worse." Public reaction was swift and divided. Some saw the king's actions as long overdue, a painful but necessary move to restore integrity after decades of whispered favoritism and unaccountable privilege. Others viewed it as a tragedy, a love story shattered under the weight of legacy and betrayal. International press dubbed the moment the shadow abdication, the Times. Camilla's fall, a crown too far, Der Spiegel. From Queen to Quiet, the Sydney Herald. More than 22 million viewers tuned in to the BBC's emergency special broadcast, while a YouGov flash poll reported that 68% of Britons approved of King Charles's decision, citing preservation of Elizabeth II's wishes as the dominant reason. Camilla's failed maneuver may have been personal, but its fallout has constitutional consequences. A private ledger leaked to The Guardian showed that legal containment and recovery efforts cost the sovereign grant over £3.2 million, including a full forensic audit of ceremonial inventories, multi-agency investigations into trust violations, reinforcement of royal vault security with AI monitoring. In response, Parliament introduced the Sovereign Safeguards Bill, now requiring independent oversight on all royal heritage assets, a move that limits royal discretionary power for the first time in modern monarchy history. Behind the scenes, this reckoning would not have happened without the firm, quiet resistance of Prince William and Prince Edward, who worked with Lady Louise Windsor and trusted palace aides to trace the paper trail of forged documents and uncover the manipulation. William, in particular, emerged not only as a protector of Elizabeth II's legacy, but as a new-age constitutional monarch in the making, discreet, ethical, and unafraid to confront decay within. His final internal memo to staff read, "We do not inherit the crown. We inherit the duty to honor it." As of this writing, Camilla has made no public statement, no apology, no defense. Her image, once on banners, coins, and charity publications, has all but vanished. Queen Elizabeth II once said in her Christmas address, "It has always been easy to destroy, but infinitely harder to build." In that spirit, the monarchy now attempts to rebuild, not with ceremony or spectacle, but with transparency, humility, and reckoning. And that reckoning began with a fan of silk, a forged line of ink, and the courage to say no.